Good evening. British Prime Minister David Cameron arrived in India on Monday asking his host to open up the economy to Britain. Cameron's trip, his second visit to India as Prime Minister, comes just days after a similar trade mission by President François Hollande of France, clearly outlining how a debt-stricken Europe is quite eager to tap into the Indian market, which is, of course, the world's fastest growing economies. Mr. Cameron's delegation, which includes representatives of more than 100 companies, is the biggest taken abroad by a British Prime Minister. It also includes 4 ministers and 9 members of Parliament. The British Prime Minister has said that the two countries enjoy a special relationship, a term usually reserved for Britain's ties with the United States of America. But the nature of the relationship, people believe, is undergoing a profound change. Example 1, the Indian economy is forecast to overtake Britain's in size in the decades ahead. Cameron is also expected to lobby to allow foreign retailers like Tesco to open stores in the country. New Delhi changed the rules last year to allow foreign chains to operate in India, but attached conditions, including requirements over local sourcing of items and investment in local infrastructure and restrictions on what goods could be sold. Keeping the trade relationship apart, Cameron also has to navigate through an arms scandal that has just come to light. India said last week that it wanted to cancel a $740 million contract for a dozen helicopters made by AgustaWestland, the British-Italian subsidiary of Finmeccanica of Italy, over bribery claims. Mr. Cameron wants to persuade India to buy more civil and military hardware, and Indian officials have been saying that they intend to press Mr. Cameron for a full-fledged report on what Britain knows about the scandal. In the backdrop of his charm offensive in Mumbai, where he tried to woo business leaders, and in the second leg of his visit in New Delhi, where he met PM Manmohan Singh, we try to analyze Cameron's trip. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we take a look at the big picture as far as India's ties with Britain are concerned. We will try and get a sense of why Britain and indeed Great Britain is so anxious for a special relationship with India. And joining me tonight will be Salman, Haider, former Foreign Secretary, Amiti, the Senior Assistant Editor of The Hindu, as well as Dr. Sheetal Sharma joins us, who teaches European Studies in JNU. Welcome all to the big picture. I'd like to start the show, however, with Mr. Haider, if I could. So first it was Hollande who came to India. Now it's Cameron. India seems to be the flavor of the season as far as European states are concerned. I'm sure you're not really surprised by that, though.
I'm not surprised, but it is gratifying that Europe is taking us as seriously as it obviously is. This was not the case a few years ago, when India seemed sluggish, seemed slow to open up. But ever since the Indian economy has started booming the way it has, the European leaders have been coming here. They've been finding new virtues in our ways and seeking fresh opportunities of developing their associations with us. And this, I think, can be meaningful not only for them, but also for us.
Right. I want to go to Amiti for just a second before I come to you, Dr. Sharma. Amiti Sen, you heard what Mr. Salman Haider had to say. Europe is debt-stricken and Britain obviously has problems of its own. You're not really surprised by the interest Mr. Cameron is showing in India right now. Of course, the Indian economy has something to do with it. Huge, large, fast-growing market. How do you read the situation?
Yes, indeed, India is a lucrative market for the Western countries, especially, for the Eurozone and UK. If you look at the UK economy, since 2010, and it has seen a double-dip recession. Now the economy has started looking up a bit, but indeed, Indian market is a big market, and UK stands to gain a lot by intensifying its relationship with India.
Right. We also have Dr. Sheetal Sharma with us. She, of course, teaches European Studies in JNU. Dr. Sharma, how do you read the situation? We were talking about, just before the show, we were talking about how the diaspora is going to play a big part. But I want to come to that a little later in the program. Before that, tell us, like Mr. Haider is not really surprised that all European countries, even Vladimir Putin was here. He wants to sell us jets as well, 71 military helicopters he wants to sell us. Hollande secured actually a 12 billion defense contract to sell French fighters to India on his visit to New Delhi last week. Now, you're not really surprised by Mr. Cameron's desire for this so-called special relationship with India.
Certainly, you cannot ignore India now. It's an emerging economy as well as it's a huge reserve of human resources. Now, there are two things about Britain or this visit. One is you see England or UK as part of the European Union, which is one of the biggest trading partners with India, almost having 80 billion euro trade happening every year. At the same time, UK itself has a bilateral tie with India. Now, at one point of time, European Union is trying to emerge as a global actor. But in the absence of a common defense policy, military and foreign policy, it is not able to come onto the international scene in the way it should have emerged by now, despite being in existence for last 50 years. And in fact, over the period of time, there is a kind of growing Euroscepticism in people that Europe, being part of European Union, has not given them anything. However, when we talk of England as such, UK is part of European Union as well as a part of European Union.
Right, they're not completely integrated. They don't have the euro.
Yeah, they don't have euro. They are not part of the euro economy as such. Now, India has a special relationship with UK. It starts from centuries together, you know, about the colonial past and how British introduced certain structural, institutional and cultural changes as well. Industrialization was introduced in India by the British only. And plus the presence of the diaspora, which we'll certainly discuss at some point of time.
In a bit, though.
Yes, but we can't ignore India because of the upcoming strength of the economy world over.
Absolutely. I want to talk about, with Mr. Haider, about some internal politics happening inside Britain right now. Now, improving British-Indian ties has been on Cameron's mind. We've known that ever since he became Prime Minister. It, according to his own admission, remains one of his most important foreign policy agendas. He's always said, and the Tories have always wanted to give India that special attention because, like someone said, I was reading today, you know, relations were long neglected by terror-fighting Labour predecessors. You know, do you think this charm offensive is part of that plan to actually come to India and do what the Labour government actually neglected for a while?
I wouldn't accuse the Labour government of neglect.
Yeah,
I think that times were different. The fight against terror was dominating the international scene. It struck a chord with us, as with Britain. It represented common ground between us and others. And I think that perhaps you can, with hindsight, say that that certain other aspects of this multi-sided relationship didn't receive the emphasis that might have been beneficial because the terror issue was dominant. But I think that on the whole, there has been a steady growth in relations between India and Britain. The political thorns that have been part of this relationship and which still are to be seen every now and then have been removed largely, one by one. They've been picked out. And today it's a fairly smooth relationship where it is possible to concentrate on the positive aspects.
Fair point, fair point. Let me go to Amiti Sen very quickly. Amiti, listen to this. I have a quote from David Cameron right here. He says, "We want you to come to our country, to invest in our country and to support our country." Now, these were his words in Mumbai where he was trying to woo India Inc. to come to and invest in his country. India's relationship, especially the trade relationship with Britain now, seems to be undergoing a change. Now, that's the common view here in India as well. Is it a case of then them needing us more rather than vice versa? What do you think?
Yes, they actually do need us because we have a lot of options in terms of sourcing our goods and also exporting our goods. But all European countries and the US and Japan, they are looking at India because of our really big middle class, and buying power is huge. But at the same time, we can say that Cameron is here, he's turning on his charms. But if you actually look at what he has said so far, his statements have not been really generous. Like India is very interested in the services market in the UK, but see what they have done in the visa policy. They have clamped down on work visas for students. They have put in place a remuneration cap for our IT workers. In fact, it is very well for Mr. Cameron to say that there is no cap for students. But in the absence of a study-related work visa, it's no longer that attractive for Indian students to go to the UK. And if I'm not wrong, NASSCOM has done an informal study, and the study shows that because of this remuneration cap that has been put, almost 2/3 of their business has been affected. So India would have certainly expected Mr. Cameron to address these issues, but he's in a way skirted these issues, and he's just said really nice things like you would be giving a single day, like they would look look at giving a single day business visa. And he's also linking it to India opening insurance sector and banking system, which is actually not fair.
Would you say then these cosmetic announcements aren't really what we need? It's a very important point that Amiti raised, and I want to discuss that with my other guests as well. But that's after the break. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come on The Big Picture. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Big Picture. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, is in India. He went to Bombay first, then he came to Delhi in the second leg of his visit. He met Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister, as well. They had a joint press conference as well. Just before the break, Amiti Sen raised a very important point, and I want to put that point to Mr. Salman Haider. Let's look at some of the announcements he's really made. This is what he had to offer. And Amiti rightly mentioned that they're sort of cosmetic announcements. Same-day visas for businessmen, number one. Doing away with restrictive policies for Indian students, number two, just to name a few. Now, at face values, these are pretty decent concessions vis-a-vis opening up barriers, and that's just an appetizer really for us. What do we really want from him, and what do we really want from Britain? Considering he wants to sell us a multitude of arms, private jets, what have you, what should we really be pressing for?
Well, I don't regard these as major developments, because, in fact, it's not India alone that benefits. India has been pressing for easier visa regulations and so on, but the harm done is not done to India alone, but to Britain too. Britain has certain assets here in terms of goodwill, in terms of the sort of soft power, if you will. The continuation of these relationships, call it a special relationship, to use the British Prime Minister's word, which has made the two sides comfortable with each other. But if the exclusions come up and intrude, then that relationship gets clouded.
Right.
So I think that these are matters where we should see it as something of mutual benefit.
Right.
But we should also not expect the British Prime Minister to come here in order to do India's work for what we want.
Right.
This is an occasion where India must make its own case persuasively and make its own assessment and see where things are going. And while we may not be that open to certain matters, like opening up areas of the economy regarding which the British visitor has spoken.
India doesn't do special concessions.
Yes, it doesn't do that sort of thing. And then we have to argue why. We have to demonstrate why, what is beneficial and to both sides, and how we can take this relationship forward. I think that give and take is normal and to be expected in a visit of this nature.
Absolutely. Dr. Sharma, you had a point to make just before the break. I think Amiti said something that you want to talk about.
See, half a century ago, people said that if you are in the middle of the industrialization, you have to look west. The things have changed now. If you have to sustain your economy and the pace of industrialization, you have to look east.
Absolutely.
And India and China have put that case forward in the front of the entire world. Now, it is not the case that India needs UK. It is the reverse side, I would say, that 60%
they
need us more.
Yeah.
The reason is, there's a demographic deficit in Europe. The population is aging.
Right.
They need people to come there and work for them,
Absolutely.
particularly in terms of skilled workers and semi-skilled workers. Even the non-skilled level, the menial jobs that people are doing from, those who are migrating from Asia and Africa. So they need us more than we need them, in fact, one point. The second point is that there is a lot of scope in the service sector now.
Right.
Doctors, nurses, engineers, software engineers, or you
highly
can talk
skilled
education, professors, researchers. There is a whole lot of scope for people to enter into service sector, hospitality, media and all. And UK needs this. As per one of the statistics, placement agency, out of 1 million jobs, 8,50,000 went to the migrants or people from these origin. So you can understand, the situation, that they need more.
Right, absolutely.
Than we need these people.
Absolutely. They need us more than we need them, really. Amiti Sen, let me ask you this. After meeting the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh today, Cameron said India and Britain will work together on tackling terrorism. He wants to open more trade offices inside India as well. He wants to rewrite the rules, according to his own words, for sharing technology. That's, I think, something really important that he said. So very positive vibes, really, coming out from New Delhi as well. How do you read that? India will want to increase cooperation with Britain. Conventional logic suggests that, but we want it on our own terms now, correct?
That is true. See, intentions are really good from both sides. UK needs India. India also needs UK because, UK is our third largest trading partner within the EU. It is our 16th largest trading partner within the world. So, yes, India also needs UK. But, UK also has to be sensitive to India's needs. We are negotiating a free trade agreement with the EU as a whole. And, they are looking at big markets in India in terms of, areas where we have obstacles at the moment, like in the areas of, wines and spirits and also automobiles. So if they really want increased market access in the country, they should also be, ready to, accept what India is looking at, which is the services market, and be generous and, give offers in terms of, how much they want in India.
Right. Amiti, a quick follow-up question to you. His views on taxation seemed quite interesting to me, at least when I was reading what he said. As you know, Vodafone got into some trouble in India. Tesco also wants to come to India desperately, as many others. He made a very significant point. He made a distinction between highly aggressive tax avoidance and tax evasion. Now, he said evasion should be punished. Thoughts on that? I mean, he will surely be lobbying for British companies to get a paved path into India. Is that a given?
India has already accepted that, the world has not really welcomed the double tax, the taxation, the taxation avoidance agreement that we were, looking at. So India has already postponed it. We have said that we are not going to look at it for the next 2 years, and only after 2015 we are going to work on it. So they also have to realize that India is responsive. We are responding to demands coming from all over the world.
Right, absolutely. We'll take a small break right now. I want to get closing arguments from all my guests on the other side of this break. We'll also talk about the huge factor, the huge Indian diaspora that lives in Britain right now. That's after the break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to The Big Picture. David Cameron is on a charm offensive. First he went to Mumbai, then he came to Delhi, and he's made some announcements. We've been talking about that for the past 20 minutes. I want to come to Dr. Sheetal Sharma right now and ask her this. Now, Dr. Sharma, the real future for Indo-British relationship is actually right under Cameron's nose, as someone said the other day, and it's growing. 1.5 to 2 million Indian diaspora living in Britain. Now, that's a population which people believe is far more visible, far more integrated, socially integrated than, say, the diaspora in the US or some other countries as well. Now, I'm sure Cameron understands that. He knows the importance of it, and that's where the biggest meeting point between the two countries will come. Thoughts on that?
See, Indian diaspora is the biggest diaspora in UK. You just gave the figures. It stands around 2 million people in the 63 million population. And the best part of it, that Europe is currently facing a problem with integration of the other communities into the European society. However, Indians are the best integrated diaspora because I won't say that they are not resistant, but somehow their ability to adapt to the Western world and way of life has been far more easy as compared to the other communities. Right. And that is why whenever they go to West, they become part of that life, Americanized life, or say European way of life, or say British way of life. And their presence is so overwhelming that now you have Indian curry selling, go to South Hall, you get every kind of Indian cuisine there, Indian dresses, Bollywood.
India gave Britain their national dish as well.
Yes. So what has happened is that this culture industry is somehow making way into Britain. And that's the best part of it, that to blend it well, you need more and more number of people, and just these ties need to go beyond diplomacy and foreign policy. Right. That's cultural diplomacy that we can talk about.
Absolutely. Salman, Haider, how important is the Indian diaspora going to be? How important a role do you see them playing if Britain and India are to have a closer, far more special relationship?
They're going to play, they're already playing a very important role, both ways. We shouldn't think that the Indian diaspora in Britain are sort of mindful of Indian interests above those of their own country of adoption.
Absolutely.
And in fact, in many cases, one can argue that the reverse is true. But on the whole, this is a very healthy development. Let me also add that what was said just now about how well they've integrated, it has not always been the case. Things have changed. There were problems. And the problems took different forms. I'm not talking about dramatic things happening, but the Indian tendency to do things like be doctors, be engineers, these professions which are very popular among our people,
Right.
both abroad and at home, that this meant that they did not take as big a part in public life as was desirable.
Right.
I'm glad to see that that is changing.
Right.
But still, there's scope for more members of parliament, more local councillors, and so on, taking a part in the political and public life of the country.
I think that's going to be very important. Now, for the longest time, only Indian name you could come up with in the House of Commons was Keith Vaz. That is changing now. There are some councillors there as well, and I can name
And
them.
I think we should note that that the induction of various lords in the House
There are
of
about
Lords,
6 in the House of
yes, that has been very helpful.
Right, absolutely. Amiti Sen, I want to come to you real quickly on this particular subject. The Indian diaspora, of course, is also playing a very important role in the British economy. Now, some time ago, Vibrant Gujarat was happening. There was a senior official from the British government there as well. They promised to invest something in Gujarat, and Gujaratis and Gujarat promised to invest something in Britain as well. How important do you think the economic relationship between the Indian diaspora as well as people living here and there, how important do you think is that going to be in improving or getting to that special relationship that Mr. Cameron is talking about?
No, certainly it is a very important aspect of our relationship because, when we have family ties within two countries, there are people from Indian diaspora there that is family here, and so this actually increases interest. The business ties always prosper whenever there is also a lot of repatriation of money that is happening from UK to India. Like people are sending back money from that country to their families here. So when families are involved, and the Indian diaspora does count a lot.
Right, absolutely. I want to close the show with Mr. Salman Haider, if I could. Sir, last thoughts on the show, last word goes to you on the show. How do you really see this progressing from here on in? Cameron's been here twice now already, already 3 years he's been Prime Minister. He's got about 140 businessmen with him. There are going to be deals inked here, there, everywhere. The government in New Delhi seems to be positive towards it, but they're not giving their cards away. They're keeping them close to their chest. How do you really read the situation? Do you think, like we said earlier on the show, that India knows what it wants and it's going to have to calibrate its strategy and then move forward regarding the fact that this is what we want and we won't take anything less? How do you read the situation?
Well, I think that for India and for Britain, the important thing is not issues. There are many issues, good, bad, indifferent. And these are being tackled. There's plenty of goodwill to tackle the issues and get a positive result. I think the important thing is to affirm the structure and the nature of this relationship, to emphasize its importance, to make both sides reaffirm their own sense of commitment to the other side. Because I think that the positives flow from a sense of comfort, a sense of feeling that there are joint purposes.
Right.
That is what the leadership has to do.
Absolutely. I think we have 30 seconds more. I want to get Dr. Sheetal. Any last words that you would like to add regarding the India-British relationship?
Britain is one of the oldest democracies and India is one of the largest democracies.
Right, right.
And the combination of the two is going to yield much more greater results as people might have envisaged so far.
Absolutely. I think with those words, we'll end the show. I must thank all my guests before I leave you. Amiti Sen, many thanks for joining us on The Big Picture. Salman Haider, a big thank you for coming on the show as well. Dr. Sheetal Sharma, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you as usual. Of course, a growing relationship, a special relationship that Mr. Cameron wants with India is, of course, possible. Like Mr. Salman Haider said, India has to really see and affirm the nature of the relationship that we really want with our past colonial masters. Here's to Chicken Tikka Masala, Athar Khan saying goodbye, good night, and thank you for watching.